Enter Donald Trump. On Laura Ingraham, Fox News last night sat down for an interview in which he talked about a lot of stuff. We went through the 50-year mortgage, talked about the shutdown itself, but also specifically health care. Remember concepts of a plan? The president's been working on these concepts, and it involves sending you money. Here's what he told Laura Ingraham about this last night.
What I want, and probably what you're alluding to, is the fact that I want, instead of going to the insurance companies, I want the money to go into an account for people where the people buy their own health insurance. It's so good. The insurance will be better. It'll cost less. Everybody's going to be happy. They're going to feel like entrepreneurs. They're actually able to go out and negotiate their own health insurance. And they can use it only for that reason. That's the beauty, only for that purpose. And if we did that, that would be so exciting. Call it Trumpcare, call it whatever you want to call it.
Trumpcare, okay, to replace Obamacare. Well, then maybe that's what will happen. But the president's talking about the entrepreneurial exercise of you or me negotiating with an insurance company. That is the idea of how this works, right? You get a whole bunch of people together, pay into a pot, and then have some leverage to negotiate with said insurance company. Now it's going to be every man for himself. I bet you producer James gets a better rate than I got. Well, let's see how the panel feels about it. Rick Davis and Jeannie Shanzano are back with us today with the idea of Trumpcare on the menu. Bloomberg Politics contributors. Jeannie is our Democratic analyst and democracy visiting fellow at Harvard Kennedy School's Ash Center. Rick is our Republican strategist and partner at Stone Court Capital. Jeannie, the concepts of a plan are being fleshed out. And you remember Joe Biden used to talk about the dignity of having a job. He said it wasn't just about making a paycheck. It was being able to look yourself in the mirror, look at your family in the eye and say everything's going to be all right. Now we suggest the dignity of entrepreneurialism. Is this what America needs, Jeannie?
It's as if he didn't live through all of the fighting on Obamacare. And you know, Joe, it reminds me of in the early 20th century, conservatives pushed this idea of liberty to contract. We don't need minimum wage, minimum working hours. Let's let everybody be free to contract without remembering the imbalance of power between workers on the ground and managers and owners. And of course, that's the same idea here. We as individuals, without a collectivity, have no powers against the big insurance companies. Donald Trump thinks we all want to go out there and be entrepreneurs and spend our lives negotiating with insurance companies. I'm not sure what he's thinking, but I think my favorite quote in the last few days was when Kevin Hassett was on CBS asked about this over the weekend, and he said, oh, there's not really a plan. The president is just brainstorming. I don't know if this is like his riffing, but I can tell you it's not the thing you're supposed to do when you're president of the United States as it pertains to something as important as healthcare, to be out in public brainstorming, but he's continuing.
Well, I'll tell you what, Rick, the president, again, he said, it's so good. The insurance will be better. It'll cost less. Everybody's going to be happy. They're going to feel like entrepreneurs. Is there a chance that he's right?
It's hard to parse through the dialogue with the president. You know, he's not precise with the words he uses. It sounds a little bit like Bill Cassidy's idea, the Republican senator from Louisiana, who's on the negotiating committee that Thune just appointed. And he has this idea that you create accounts at corporations that you, if you're an employee who work for you, they put money in a pre-tax situation, which technically then maybe means you pay less because you're not paying taxes on the money that then is going to purchase insurance, and that you can purchase insurance through that account. Bill Cassidy's a really smart guy. He's a doctor. He knows the industry better than anyone. I would be deferential to him because he's looked at it from a point of view of, you know, ACA is fine with a lot of people, but it does raise the cost of medical care in the United States, and we should all be working to try and bring it down. But as you also point out, Joe, insurance companies like actuarial tables. They want millions and millions of people in a pool to then grade a price for the insurance. They don't want to just negotiate with you and me. And so there's a lot of wood to chop here. But look, Thune's put his group together that includes Cassidy, Schumer's leading the negotiators on the side of the Democrats. Somewhere in there is a way to manage the ACA subsidy issue and any other things that the Republican caucus wants to try to put forth.
Bill Cassidy's name's been coming up pretty often, Jeannie, and I'm not sure what he would think about what the president said last evening. Does he have the model for a Republican plan?
There are models out there, but none that has been a selling point. I mean, as we know, this has been the Achilles heel of the Republican Party for years. Anytime the conversation turns to healthcare, it has been a political loser, bar none. I'm just surprised that we're talking about this more than Chuck Schumer in the last 48 hours. But putting that aside, I mean, just think about what the president is saying. Has anybody, I'm expecting he hasn't, recently tried to call their insurance company? Do we all want to be waiting on lines to negotiate with some kind of robotic voice, press 1, press 3, go here, go there? I mean, what are they talking about? And until they can articulate a plan, which both Kevin Hassett and Scott Besson has said does not exist or is just, they're just brainstorming about now, they have to be very cautious about this. And who knows this? Well, the president's poster, Tony Fabrizio, in July, big memorandum, which said, this is the death knell of the Republicans going into the midterms. They will lose by double digits in the 20 plus contentious districts if they are talking about this issue. So in fact, Democrats have been doing them a favor by trying to get a resolution, extend the subsidies. I'm surprised they haven't done it just for a year until after the election. But since they're insisting on not, they are looking at a political loser. And my only guess is that Donald Trump doesn't care much because he's not on the ballot. And that's why people like Marjorie Taylor Greene do care an awful lot, because they are looking at their district and they know this is a loser for Republicans going into 26.
Well, Rick, we've got two different stories in the two different chambers as well. John Thune, as I mentioned, promised a vote. I believe that was part of the deal with Jeanne Shaheen here. The White House, I guess, was on board with this. Katie Britt started making phone calls, and here we have an off-ramp. But Mike Johnson is refusing to commit to an Obamacare vote on the House floor. What makes Democrats think this is going anywhere?
Because they still have a bullet in the chamber, if you want to call it that, with a vote on January, at the end of January, to extend either the appropriations bills or another CR. I mean, this isn't over, right? We just extended government funding from 2025. We didn't solve the problem, save for those three minibus appropriations that were passed in the Senate. Those come off the table, so it's not as horrific as it was before. But we could be waking up on February 1st with another shutdown. And so there is leverage. And my guess is, too, the president's already signaled that he wants to have a conversation about health care. And I don't disagree with Tony Fabrizio, as Jeannie points out. I mean, like, if I were looking at the results of Tuesday's elections and said, gee, we want to pivot to talking health care because that affordability thing isn't working for us, it's like, let's dig deeper and see whether or not we can really cover ourselves over with earth before the election day.
Wow. All right. Well, okay. So that said, Jeannie, if there's no extension of Obamacare subsidies, if Democrats don't get the deal they want, do we set a new record shutdown starting the end of January?
Oh boy, I certainly hope not, but I do think it's possible. Even Jeanne Shaheen was out saying that, listen, to Rick's point, we have this deadline, it's there, we can be back at this all over again. The reality is that you've got the president who, even last night in that interview with Laura Ingraham, reiterated that affordability is a con job. He's not going to talk about it, doesn't want to talk about it. And to Rick's point, he's going to talk about health care. None of that makes any political sense for Republicans. Again, Fabrizio, July, I think the memo was, a 15-point loser for Republicans in these competitive districts for the House. And so, it would be a gift for Republicans to make a deal with Democrats on health care. I think it's possible they can do that in the Senate, but then they hand that hot potato over to Mike Johnson. And to your point, he told Jake Tapper on CNN, he said repeatedly, it's a non-starter there. And I don't know what happens, because who needs it politically more than anyone are the Republicans in the House. but they are dead set against it. And let's not forget, they're dead set against it without articulating a plan to move forward. So that's what they should be spending their time on. And they haven't, in 15 years, by my estimation, articulated a plan to combat the Affordable Care Act, and one that can sell to voters. And they're gonna pay the price at the ballot box if they keep this up.
Well, I'll tell you, if you want to explore the split in the Democratic Party here between the moderates who voted yes in the Senate and progressives who are calling for their retirement, as written in The Hill appropriately, Thanksgiving dinner in the Shaheen household might be a little awkward. Enter Stephanie Shaheen, Democratic candidate for Congress in New Hampshire, same state where her mom is in the Senate, of course. Says she cannot support this deal and in fact demonizes it. Improving health care has been the cause of my life, she writes. It's why I am running for Congress, so I cannot support this deal when Speaker Johnson refuses to even allow a vote to extend health care tax credits. Stephanie Shaheen says too many people will see health care costs already too high skyrocket even further starting in January. Knowing that her mother is the one who helped to spearhead the deal here, the meet in the middle with the White House and with John Thune in the Senate. It's going to be interesting to see how these two get out there in public. Our panel's going to stay with us in our next hour. Rick Davis and Jeannie Shanzano will be back in hour 2 as we welcome our global television audience. And Tyler Kendall will be with us for the hour as well. Thank you, Rick and Jeannie, Bloomberg Politics contributors. We're going to spend some time as well in our next hour with a member of Congress on his way back to town, Byron Donalds. The Republican from Florida will join, and we'll talk to Jared Bernstein, former economic advisor in the Biden administration, about the job market with new ADP numbers.